A business that started from the ground up, owned by a single family, has extended into an entire business, cultivating their best efforts into a full-fledged field.
I grew up on the Cranberry Marsh in Black River Falls, known as Perry Creek Cranberry. We were involved with the marsh 43 years. And during that time period, we went through many transitional changes regarding the cultivation and growing and marketing of the fruit.
A lot of changes. Went from a lot of manual labor to a lot of mechanical.
Ocean Spray is still doing their best to create new and hardier varieties of cranberries.
Ocean Spray and all these, they all started trying to grow better vines, that were hardier, grew quicker, had an earlier crop, so you didn't have to frost protect them so much, and more berries. And they come up with a lot of technology.
But these aren't the only updates to the cranberry agriculture from the past.
The actual mechanization came about in the early 50s when they finally went from using a cranberry rake, which was quite an advent back in the early 40s. They were still hand-picking fruit. It wasn't until the early 50s that growers, they couldn't go out and buy a piece of equipment. They had to actually construct it on their marsh. And it was that marsh construction and the innovation of the individual farmers that created the mechanization then of the harvest. So, and that just traveled like wildfire. In 1949, over 96% of the crop was harvested by hand. By 1951, 100% of the marshes were harvested with this mechanical pickers that everybody invented on their own.
But more technological advances were still to come.
And then it just spiraled into going from flooding a marsh for frost protection to using irrigation. And that occurred in the 60s. So, and then in the 70s, we had another revolution where we realized instead of letting our crop just dry up or cook on the vine due to the high heat temperatures, we could recycle our water. So we could put in big pumps on the lower end of the reservoirs and pump it back up.
Now, many old practices are regulated into normal harvest to help.
Sanding is replenishing the lower layer of the vines from the irrigation and the flooding that washes the sand away. So we need to replenish the sand so that the vines have good soil and good sand to grow in.
Although not every year can be perfect, even with all the evolution, they still put out the best crop possible.
Last year we had about 40% lower than normal average harvest last year. Statewide, we only had about 70 semi-trucks in perspective. And this year was a much better growing season. It was a little cooler this year in our area, a little bit more favorable conditions for growing cranberries, and we were able to send 115 semis.
It seems that this year turned out to be a better outlook for the harvest after all. These conditions and hard work will push the business towards producing and succeeding through all the following decades, built on a long and strong past.